decisions further up the chain of command to the kernel level will take care of the problem of retaliation. But what would your response be to that?
I disagree with his assessment, and just to be clear, I think Senator Levin cares deeply about this issue and is putting forward his best effort on what he believes will make a difference. But the reason why I think that change doesn't do enough is because of this. Right now, the commanders are putting forward cases that are reported and that their attorneys are suggesting should be prosecuted. Even sometimes the commander will say, let's go forward even if the prosecutor isn't sure. That's only about 300 cases. And so if you're starting with 26,000 and only 300 are going to trial, if that commander's decision is being appealed, if he says no, that's not the problem. In fact, the commander and his lawyer only disagree 1% of the time. So that's 1% of 300 cases. It's a handful. That's not our problem. Our problem is not the disagreement between a commander and a lawyer. Our problem is, exactly as General Amos said, they don't trust us. They don't trust the chain of command. And so if the victims do not trust the chain of command, they will not report these cases. If they've witnessed other people reporting being retaliated against, if they've witnessed other people being shoved out of the military because they've reported these crimes, they will not trust the system that the chain of command has put into place. And so our only hope is that by making the system more objective, that is not dependent on that judgment, that decision by the commander, they will have hope and confidence that this objective, trained military prosecutor, and the training is essential because this set of prosecutors are trained for sexual assault and sexual assault and rape within the military. They know what the crime looks like, they know who the perpetrators are, they know how it's covered up, they know how they're retaliated against, they know the pressure that's put on the victim. So they're very knowledgeable. They know the law, and they know whether they can win these cases. So I want that trained military prosecutor, not any commander, because not all commanders will have the determination that we saw the military brass pledge in the last hearing. Not every commander is going to understand that rape is a serious, violent crime of domination, often not even related to dating or romance, more often related to dominance and violence and power. So you need someone who's trained and knowledgeable to make the assessment about whether these cases should go to trial. Create a system of objectivity so victims have a chance to see that justice could be done. That's why I don't think Senator Levin's solution will work.
Yeah, and I agree with Senator Levin, and they've tweaked the system and done some good things which we support and keep in the bill. I want to make a point because people get confused. They sometimes think what Senator Gillibrand and we do is take the whole thing outside the military. Now, there are some people that want that, but we don't go that route at all. We keep these crimes in the military, but with people who know exactly what they're doing. They're trained prosecutors, and they're objective. So I think it's an important point to make.
Senator Gillibrand? I'd like to invite Senator Blumenthal to say a few words.
Thank you. Well, let me just thank Senator Gillibrand for her leadership on this issue. I've been working on it for some time with proposals such as mandatory discharge, sticking bill of rights, other measures that greatly enhance the credibility and trust in the system, which is critical to reporting. And none is more important than the one that she has been championing for separating the prosecutorial decision, the convening story, from the command chain. And I am very, very encouraged by the support that we are amassing. I see it in the response among my colleagues from both sides of the aisle, as is demonstrated today. And I think that we are making inroads all across the Senate, including on the Armed Services Committee, where I serve and she does, along with Senator Corono. And I think that success is within sight. Whatever the threshold of votes that is required, I think that a majority and even 60 votes are within our limit. So thank you to Senator Gill and to the committee.
This is, as Senator Corono said, quite a cross-section of the Senate. Senator Paul, Senator Cruz, maybe you can give us a sense of how you were convinced to sign on to this. Was it meetings? Was it just testimony? testimony? What was it that brought you to this?
You know, I think that what's lost so many times up here is people say there's no bipartisanship. Senator Gillibrand came over to the other floor and just told me about it. I also saw the news reports about it, and my first impressions were to be favorably inclined to it, and then I needed to read a little more about it. And there were a few little things I wanted modified to make it better, and she was very receptive to that. And it wasn't like a big deal to try to get the bill even better. And I think the changes they've made should bring more conservatives on board to this. And but I don't know. I really, truly don't see things in partisan purpose. I really don't see them that way. I'm more than willing to go against my party anytime or against the other party. We should go for what we think is right. This is an issue that I think is obviously right. It sounds like we're all trying to get to a more just situation.
And I'll mention, as I described, that I was really persuaded by the argument Senator Gillibrand presented at the Armed Services hearing. I went in undecided. I have to admit, when I said that at the hearing and cast my vote supporting this amendment afterwards, I visited with a reporter who was, I think, genuinely astonished. And said, you mean every vote isn't decided beforehand and actually arguments can persuade? I said, well, I can't speak for every time, but I can certainly say here that, look, I think all of us, Republicans, Democrats, and I think also the commanders in the military want to solve this problem. And the question is, what's the right solution that will fix it, that will prevent sexual assault, but also maintain good order and discipline, maintain the integrity of the chain of command. And I think Senator Gillibrand has worked hard with a number of others. I think the suggestions that Rand made the bill stronger, and I was certainly supportive of those. And I think this is a common sense approach to fixing a problem to make our military stronger and make sure we can stand by and protect every serviceman and servicewoman.
We have time for two more.
Now, Senator Paul mentioned some changes that were made to the bill. The uniquely military crimes were an exception during the SASC markup. Has there been changes made to it since the SASC markup? I'm a little
No,
confused.
as the amendment filed, Senator Rand noticed 2 additional crimes that he felt were better dealt by commanders, and I agreed with him. I think his changes were smart and make the bill stronger. Specifically, direct order, which for whatever reason was overlooked. If you are given a direct order by your commander, you're not going to go call a lawyer to investigate whether you responded or didn't respond. That is not the appropriate response. And so he was very smart to recognize that and say that should be included in the 36 specific crimes that I believe, and we all believe, because we wrote the bill this way, are military in nature. That there's no parallel in the civilian system. So going AWOL, for example, is the most clear example. The military commander will be in charge. If you go AWOL, you don't show up for duty, he will decide what's going to happen to you because he knows what's going on, why you didn't show up, what's the appropriate response to either keep you in the military or respond appropriately. So he found 2 additional crimes that I agreed would be better determined by a military commander and not taken out of the chain of command. They were serious, but military nature.
Okay, one last question.
The Defense Department yesterday, the IG put out a report that showed really serious problems with some investigations of sexual assault and rape. It was like amazing discrepancies, like not collecting clothing, not
Correct.
re-interviewing witnesses.
Exactly.
I mean, your bill looks at the prosecution, but they seem to have bigger problems than just what you're
Well, that's
trying to
as
tackle.
Senator Boxer said. This crime is, this challenge is pervasive. It is a cultural top-to-bottom issue that needs to be looked at every step of the way. What we were able to do in the Armed Services Committee, we had a number of bills authored by many members of the committee and people outside the committee that would strengthen the process and help victims. So, for example, one bill that Senator Patty Murray and Kelly Ayotte were the lead sponsors on would assure that every victim will now have a victim's advocate. We included that in our markup, straight to the base bill, unanimously supported. So there's a number of reforms that I urge you to look at. We can actually summarize them for you. There's probably about a dozen really strong reforms that will help victims and help this process better. Also accountability in terms of, okay, so punishments and whether you're sent out of the military if convicted. Also better record keeping so that we can find recidivists over time. If someone doesn't report, we still have a record of the crime being committed. So there's a lot of reforms that will go to that. Go ahead, Dick.
I think that's a very important question, and it speaks to the need for a trained, experienced prosecutor. I was a federal prosecutor. I serve the state attorney general. Ultimately, the prosecutor can insist on standards and excellence in investigations. He is ultimately in charge. He's the one who has to present the case to a jury and make the case. So this proposal is integral to the entire justice system. And I might just go back to the question, how can people who normally disagree come together on this issue? Criminal justice has never been a partisan issue. Under any administration, at any time, it unites all of us. Justice, and particularly criminal justice, effective prosecution, should not be about Republican or Democrat, and certainly not about ideological differences on other issues. So I think there's nothing surprising about thoughtful people coming together who may disagree on other issues.
All right, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.